My name is Anna. And honestly, from as far back as I can remember, I felt like I was a bit of a disappointment to my parents. It wasn't like they ever sat me down and said it, you know? But the way they looked at me when I was born, they were really hoping for their first son. And then again, when my younger sister Chloe arrived 3 years later, those looks just spoke volumes. I was Anna, their firstborn daughter, and it just always felt like I wasn't quite enough. I remember overhearing Mum telling Dad after Chloe was born, low voices in the kitchen, maybe the next one will be a boy, but there wasn't going to be a next one. Mum had complications during Chloe's birth, and that was that. No more kids. Their dream of having a son, it got put on hold, I guess. Transferred onto us somehow, like maybe we would give them grandsons instead. Growing up in our pretty ordinary house in Oakwood Heights, I watched as Chloe quickly figured out how to totally charm Mum and Dad. She'd bat those big, innocent brown eyes and they'd just melt like anything on a hot day. Me, I just became more and more independent. I learned pretty fast not to chase after attention or approval I wasn't going to get. Better to just rely on myself, right? Chloe was a pro at knowing exactly what buttons to push to get her way. I always had the basics: clothes, food, a roof, over my head, a decent education. But that genuine warmth, that feeling of being cherished, that was always in short supply, at least for me. Over time, I just came to terms with it. Built my own little world inside my head, a sort of fortress of self-reliance. I'm going to study economics, I announced at dinner one night during my senior year of high school. Mum and Dad exchanged that look across the table. You know the one. Are you sure about that, honey? Mum asked, her fork pausing. That sounds like a very technical field, Dad added, nodding. What about something a little more suitable for a young lady? Teaching, maybe, or nursing? I just held my ground. My stomach was a little tight, but I kept my voice steady. I've already been accepted to Redwood University. My grades were good enough for a partial scholarship. Well, Mum sighed, and the disappointment in her voice was so familiar, it was almost predictable. Comforting, in a weird way. Chloe, who was still in high school herself, just smirked from across the table. I'm thinking of studying psychology, she announced, and Mum and Dad immediately beamed. Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful, Mum exclaimed. You've always been so good with people. I just pushed my food around on my plate, letting their voices kind of wash over me like background noise. I knew fighting for their approval was a battle I'd never win. My focus was set on my future, on the independence college would bring. Met Ethan during my sophomore year at Redwood. He was a senior, also in the economics department. We literally bumped into each other in the finance section of the library stacks. My statistics textbook went flying. He picked it up. And yeah, that's pretty much how our story started. You're in Professor Davison's macro class, right? He asked, handing my book back. I've seen you there, asking all the really smart questions. I actually blushed. I wasn't used to anyone even noticing me, much less in a positive way. Yeah, that's me, the one who probably keeps the class running late. Not annoying at all. He smiled, and his smile was genuinely warm. Actually, I was wondering, would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime? I could tell you about the upper level stuff you'll be taking next year. That one coffee date turned into dinner. Dinner turned into movie nights. And before I knew it, we were inseparable. For the very first time in my life, I felt truly, deeply seen and appreciated. Ethan didn't compare me to anyone else. He just liked me, all of me. After he graduated, Ethan took a job at Genesis Corp, and he waited for me to finish my degree. The day I graduated, we decided to move in together. We found this small apartment on Maple Street. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. It felt like building our own little world. "Mom, Dad, this is Ethan," I said, introducing him during his first visit to my parents' house on Pine Lane. The change in their attitude was instant, and honestly, kind of jarring. "Oh, Ethan!" Mum practically squealed, her eyes lighting up. "We are just thrilled to finally meet you. Will you be joining us for the holidays? Christmas? Both?" Dad clapped him on the shoulder, a little harder than necessary, maybe. "Son," he boomed, "we've heard so much about you. Anna says you're in finance. Tell me about your job." That word. Son. It hung in the air. Right. They were finally getting the son they'd always wanted, even if it was through marriage. I watched them just totally fawn over Ethan, asking him about his career plans when he thought he might want to settle down. Chloe, who was living back home after graduating college and still hadn't found a serious boyfriend, sat in the corner during these family gatherings, just shooting these burning looks at us. For once, I was the sister who had something she desperately wanted, and she absolutely couldn't stand it. After about a year of living together, during a quiet dinner at our place, Ethan got down on one knee. My heart just soared. I said yes immediately. We decided on a small, intimate wedding, which of course my parents protested loudly. They wanted something big, elaborate. "But it's your big day, Anna," Mum argued. "Don't you want something more special?" "This is special," I insisted, maybe a little more firmly than I intended. "It's exactly what we want, and the ceremony was perfect. Just our closest friends and a small handful of family in a little garden venue." Ethan and I exchanged our vows, had a lovely dinner reception, and went back to our apartment as husband and wife. It felt so right, starting our married life in the same place where we'd really begun building our life together. The questions started almost immediately after the honeymoon. "So, when can we expect some good news?" Mom would ask, her eyes just gleaming with this barely concealed impatience for a grandson. "We're saving for a house first," I'd explain again and again. "We want to be financially stable before starting a family." Dad would just shake his head, a look of disapproval on his face. "Your mother and I didn't have much when we started. Out, and we managed just fine." It was like they couldn't grasp the idea of wanting a little security first. Every single family dinner turned into an update on someone else's growing family. "Did you hear the Martins just became grandparents again? Another boy." Or, "The Richards' daughter just announced she's pregnant and she's younger than you, Anna." The pressure was constant. It was exhausting. Finally, after 2 years of scraping every penny together, Ethan and I bought our first house. It wasn't a mansion, just a modest place, but it felt like a huge step. It was ours. Well, ours and the bank's. You know how that goes. But the moment we signed those mortgage papers, I knew the baby questions would hit a fever pitch. And they did. What I absolutely hadn't expected was Chloe's announcement just 3 months later. "I'm pregnant," she declared during Sunday dinner, placing a hand dramatically on her still flat stomach. "It's Alex's." Alex was her boyfriend of maybe 6 months, a guy who was, frankly, not very impressive. None of us really liked him. The next few months were a blur of chaos. Alex disappeared almost as soon as Chloe started showing, leaving her completely on her own. She moved back into the house on Pine Lane with Mum and Dad. But instead of this being some kind of difficult situation, my parents acted like it was the greatest news ever. They practically turned their house into a shrine to the upcoming grandchild. When little Mia was born, you'd think she was royalty. My parents converted Chloe's old room into a nursery, bought literally every baby gadget imaginable, and basically reoriented their entire lives around helping raise their granddaughter. "Isn't she just perfect?" Mum would coo, rocking Mia during our visits, her eyes shining. Then she'd turn to me, that pointed look on her face. "Don't you just want one of your own, Anna?" What hurt more than the constant pressure was watching Ethan with Mia. He'd get right down on the floor with her, make silly faces, spend ages entertaining her with toys and books. My heart would ache watching him. "Ethan is such a natural with children," Mum would say pointedly. "He's going to make such a wonderful father." It felt like a constant, unspoken comparison. I started doing everything I could think of. Tracking. My cycle meticulously, taking all the vitamins, following every piece of advice on every pregnancy website I could find. Month after month we tried, and month after month nothing happened. Meanwhile, Ethan was spending more and more time over at my parents' house playing with Mia. "She's such a sweet kid," he'd say on the drive home, a wistful look in his eyes. "Did you see today? She's starting to crawl, and she almost said uncle." "You're so good with her, Ethan." My mother would pile on the praise whenever we were there. "Just imagine how wonderful you'll be with your own children." I'd just manage a smile and a nod, but inside, this tight, cold knot of anxiety was growing. Why wasn't I pregnant? What if something was really, truly wrong? I tried to push these thoughts away. "It'll happen when it's meant to happen," I kept telling myself. After a full year of trying, a whole 12 cycles with no success, I was still clinging to hope, trying to stay positive. These things take time, right? But when Mum found out we'd been actively trying for a year, she went into absolute panic mode. "A whole year, Anna? No, something is definitely wrong. You need to see a doctor immediately." She started forwarding me contact information for fertility specialists before I'd even left their house that day. There was no avoiding it anymore. Finally, just to get everyone to stop talking about it, I made an appointment. Ethan came with me, holding my hand in the sterile exam room as the doctor went through her questions. It felt clinical, detached, everything I was feeling inside. Blood tests, ultrasounds, endless more tests followed. It felt like an eternity. Then came the day of the results. "I'm sorry," the doctor said, her voice gentle but firm. "The tests indicate that you are infertile." The words hit me like a physical blow, like I'd been punched in the gut. Ethan squeezed my hand, but I barely felt it. My head was buzzing. The doctor kept talking about options, treatments, IVF, adoption. But her voice sounded like it was coming from very far away. It was like the world just stopped. The devastation felt absolute. How could I possibly face my family with this? The answer came at the very next family dinner. I just decided to get it over with, rip off the Band-Aid. "Mum, Dad," I said during a lull in the conversation, my voice trembling despite myself. I need to tell you something." I took a deep, shaky breath. "I can't have children. I'm infertile." The silence that followed was deafening. You could hear a pin drop, and then Mum's face. It contorted with disgust. Pure, raw disgust. "Infertile?" She spat the word out like it tasted like poison. What kind of woman can't even do the one thing she's meant to do? Dad wouldn't even look at me. His gaze was fixed somewhere on the wall. An empty vessel, he muttered, low, but I heard it. Just an empty flower. Chloe just sat there, a sickening smirk on her face, bouncing little Mia on her knee. Well, she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I guess now we know who the real woman in the family is. I looked at Ethan, desperate. My eyes pleaded with him. Defend me. Defend us. Tell them they're being cruel, insane. But he just sat there staring at his plate. Silent. Ethan? My voice cracked on his name, a sound of raw pain. He finally looked up, but he still couldn't meet my eyes. I'm sorry, Anna, he said, his voice quiet, almost a whisper. But they're right. I want children, a family. And I've developed feelings for Chloe. Chloe's smirk widened into a triumphant grin. She reached out and placed her hand possessively on Ethan's arm. Get out, she said to me, her voice suddenly hard and cold. You don't belong here anymore. This is my family now. I looked at each of their faces one last time. My father's cold, stern disapproval, my mother's look of cruel satisfaction, Chloe's triumphant, vicious smile, and Ethan's guilty, cowardly avoidance. Years of marriage, a lifetime of family ties in that single moment, it all felt like nothing. Less than nothing. Worthless. Without another word, I just stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I forced myself to walk. I walked out of the dining room, out of the house, ignoring their voices calling after me. I got in my car and just drove home in a daze. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. I got back to our house and moved on autopilot. Packed a single suitcase, just clothes, the bare essentials. I left a note for Ethan on the kitchen counter. Didn't even leave it where he'd easily see it, just placed it there. File for divorce, it said. My lawyer will be in touch. The divorce was fast, clinical. We split everything down the middle just like it was some business transaction. I found a small apartment on the other side of town, a place that felt completely unconnected to my old life, and buried myself in my work. Just trying, desperately, to forget. But social media, you know? It has a way of twisting the knife. Morning at work, my colleague gasped, looking at her phone during our coffee break. Oh my God, Anna, I'm so sorry. She fumbled with her phone, trying to hide the screen. I totally forgot I still follow your sister. But I'd already seen it. Chloe, in a huge, elaborate white wedding dress, Ethan in a tux looking happy, my parents beaming proudly beside them. The caption was something about finally family, or some nonsense. My stomach dropped. It felt like that punch in the gut all over again. It's fine, I said, forcing the words out, even though it felt like the furthest thing from fine. My throat was tight. I hope they're very happy together. I went to the restroom and just stood there, breathing, trying not to cry. As soon as I got back to my desk, I deleted every single social media account I had. I couldn't bear to see any more of their perfect life. Life, though it has such a bizarre sense of humour. It really does. About a year after the divorce, maybe a little more, I was just doing a normal Saturday morning grocery run. Head down, focused, and my cart collided with someone else's. Oh, I am so incredibly sorry, a deep, kind voice said. I looked up, and my breath caught a little. the kindest brown eyes I'd ever seen. It's okay," I mumbled, a little flustered, crouching down to help pick up the few things that had tumbled out of my cart. "I'm Daniel," he said, smiling gently as he handed me a bruised apple. "Can I buy you a coffee to apologise for being such a klutz? That one coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into dating. And slowly, unexpectedly, I found myself falling in love again. But this time I knew I had to be completely, brutally honest from the start. I need to tell you something," I said one night, maybe 6 months into our relationship. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he could hear it. It's important." I took a deep breath. "I can't have children, Daniel. I'm infertile. The doctors said so." Daniel just took my hands in his grip warm and firm. He looked right into my eyes, and his expression was so calm, so loving. "Anna," he said softly, "I love you. If we want kids someday, we'll adopt. Or maybe we won't. What matters is being with you. I just want you." And just like that, a huge weight lifted. He didn't flinch. He didn't see me as broken or incomplete. He just saw me. We got married in a small, quiet ceremony at the courthouse. Just us and a few really close friends. No big fuss, no expensive dress, no family drama, no expectations hanging over us. It was perfect because it was just us, built on love and acceptance. About a year into our marriage, things started feeling off. I was tired all the time, nauseous in the mornings, dizzy at odd moments. I just felt weird. Daniel was worried and insisted I see a doctor. "Mrs. Jensen?" the doctor said, looking at my test results. She was smiling gently. "Congratulations, you're pregnant." I just stared at her. My mind couldn't process the words. That's impossible," I stammered, shaking my head. "I'm infertile. I have the tests. The doctor said..." She smiled again, a little wider this time. "The human body is a remarkable, mysterious thing, Mrs. Jensen. Sometimes, despite all the medical evidence, despite diagnosed infertility, pregnancy still occurs. It's rare, yes. A medical anomaly almost, but it happens." She gestured to the paper in her hand. "And it's happening to you." Daniel and I just cried together that night, just held each other and cried. Tears of pure, overwhelming joy, of disbelief, of gratitude. It was a miracle, our beautiful, impossible miracle. I didn't tell my family, not a word. They had lost the right to share in this happiness. They had made their choices. 9 months later, I held my son in my arms. 7 pounds. 6 ounces of perfect, squishy, beautiful baby boy. Daniel and I named him Noah. Looking at his tiny face, his little hands, feeling the weight of him against my chest, there was nothing but pure, unadulterated love. No bitterness, no regret, no anger from the past. Just this overwhelming, perfect love for this little life we created. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Noah was thriving, happy and healthy. Daniel was the most incredible, patient, loving father imaginable, and I had everything I had ever truly wanted right here in my own home. We rarely ate out. I loved our quiet family dinners together, but that night, Daniel had gotten a big promotion at work, so we decided to celebrate at this nice French place downtown, Le Petit Bistrot. That's when I saw them. At first, my brain just didn't register it. I thought maybe I was seeing things, but no, it was Chloe, my sister, tucked away in a corner booth, clearly trying to be discreet, but locked in a very intimate embrace with a man who was definitely not Ethan. She had her hand on his cheek, running her fingers through his hair, kissing him deeply. They were completely oblivious to the rest of the restaurant. My hand started shaking as I reached for my phone. I discreetly took several photos. The lighting was dim, but the pictures were clear enough. There was absolutely no mistaking what was happening. Anna! Daniel touched my arm, his brow furrowed. Are you okay? You just went completely pale. I turned the phone screen towards him, showing him the photos. That's Chloe, I whispered, my voice feeling tight. With someone who isn't Ethan. Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew my whole history, everything Chloe and Ethan and my parents had done. He saw the look on my face. Are you going to send those to him? He asked softly. My finger hovered over the send button. My mind raced. It would be so easy. One click, and I could just detonate their perfect little world, just like they had detonated mine. All that pain, all that betrayal, I could send it right back. But no. I took a deep, shaky breath. No, I said finally, saving the photos to a secure folder instead. The urge for revenge was strong, but I'm better than that. I'm better than them. Another year went by. Noah was growing into the most amazing little boy, with Daniel's kind eyes and my stubborn chin, I guess. We were visiting a friend who lived in my old neighbourhood, something I rarely did, and we decided to take advantage of the nice weather and walk to the local market. That's when it happened. Of course it did. Just our luck. As we rounded the corner near the market entrance, there they were. Mum, Dad, Chloe and Ethan, loading groceries into their car. They saw us the exact same moment we saw them. For a split second, their first reaction was the usual one. Turn away, pretend they didn't see us, noses in the air. But then their eyes landed on Noah, who was holding my hand, happily chattering about the toy truck he was clutching. Mum stopped dead in her tracks. Her eyes went wide. Who is this? She stammered, pointing at Noah. I could have kept walking. I should have, probably. But something made me stop, made me answer. This is my son, I said, my voice steady, calm, maybe even a little proud. Noah. Chloe let out a harsh, disbelieving laugh. Oh, please, we all know you can't have children. Which agency did you adopt him from? I looked her straight in the eye, and for a fleeting second, I allowed myself to enjoy the absolute shock on her face. I gave birth to him, I said, my voice clear. 3 years ago, no adoption agency involved. That's impossible, Mum sputtered, recovering slightly from her shock. The doctor said... The doctors were wrong. I cut her off, my voice firm. It happens sometimes. Rare, yes. But it happens. And here... I gestured to Noah, who was watching the tense scene with wide, curious eyes. Here's the proof. Dad's eyes went wide. His mouth fell open. A grandson? He breathed, taking a step towards us. We have a grandson. They started moving towards us then, Mum's arms already reaching out like she had some inherent right to hug my child. I stepped instinctively in front of Noah, shielding him. No, I said, my voice quiet but firm. My heart was pounding, but I felt strangely calm. You don't get to do this. You don't get to throw me away like garbage, call me names, and then suddenly claim my son as your grandson. My voice hardened slightly. You lost that privilege. You lost it the moment you chose to betray me. Chloe's face had turned a truly ugly shade of red as she watched Mum and Dad's attention completely shift to Noah. She'd always been the golden child after I was cast aside, and she clearly couldn't stand seeing that focus move away from her. "Oh, just get over yourself, Anna," she spat, venom in her voice. "So you managed to pop out one kid, big deal. I still won in the end." "I got your husband. I gave him a real family, 2 beautiful daughters." She glared at me, her eyes full of malice. "Face it, I'm still better than you'll ever be." My hand was already reaching for my phone before she even finished her rant. "Speaking of family, Chloe," I said, my voice cool and level, "why don't you tell everyone about your extracurricular activities?" "What are you talking about?" Ethan asked, his eyes narrowing, sensing a shift in the air. I pulled up the photos from Le Petit Bistro and held out my phone. "Here," I said, turning the screen towards him, then towards Mum and Dad so they could see too. Their mouths dropped open in shock. "Here's your loving wife, having dinner with someone else." I paused, letting the images sink in. Though I have to say, "Chloe, most people don't eat their dinner companions' faces." The colour drained completely from Chloe's face. Ethan snatched the phone, staring at the pictures, his face contorted in disbelief and rage. Mum and Dad were crowding around, him gasping, pointing. Who is he?" Ethan demanded, his voice shaking with fury. He's just a friend from work," Chloe stammered, backpedaling frantically. "Friends don't kiss like that," I observed coolly, watching the chaos unfold. "And they certainly don't meet in dark corners of expensive restaurants while their spouses are home with the kids." "Chloe, how could you?" Mum shrieked, sounding genuinely horrified. "After everything we did." "After everything?" I couldn't help a short, bitter laugh escaping my lips. "After you helped her steal my husband? After you threw me away because you thought I couldn't have children?" I looked at their stunned, furious faces. Karma's quite something, isn't it? Ethan and Chloe were now screaming at each other at the top of their lungs right there in the market parking lot. It was a full-blown public spectacle. "Come on, sweetie," I said softly to Noah, taking his little hand in mine. "Time to go to the park." We just turned and walked away, leaving them in the middle of their implosion. Noah was happily babbling about swings and slides, completely oblivious to the absolute train wreck we had just left behind, about a month. Later, the news filtered back to me through the grapevine. You know how those things work in a small town, even one like Oakwood Heights. Ethan, suspicious after finding out about Chloe's affair, had gotten himself tested. Turns out he was the one who was infertile, had been all along, which meant his second daughter, Violet, the one Chloe claimed was his, couldn't possibly be. He left her immediately, refused to pay support for either Violet or Mia. Chloe had no choice but to move back in with Mum and Dad, her carefully constructed, perfect life in complete ruins. They all tried reaching out after that. Calls, emails, even showing up at our house unannounced, knocking on the door. "Please, Anna." Mum begged through the door one day, her voice thick with tears. "We made such a terrible mistake. Please, let us be a part of Noah's life. He's our only grandson." "You should have thought about that," I replied calmly, keeping the door firmly shut. "Before you called me an empty vessel, before you encouraged my husband to leave me. Actions have consequences." Daniel supported my decision completely, without a single moment of hesitation. "Family isn't about DNA, Anna," he said one night, pulling me close as we watched Noah playing on the floor. "It's about love, respect, loyalty. They showed you none of those things." And he was absolutely right, of course, looking at my little family now. My incredible husband who loved me unconditionally, regardless of whether I could have children. My miracle son, Noah, who proved all the doctors wrong. Our home filled with laughter, warmth, and genuine joy. I knew I had everything I could ever possibly need. Sometimes the family you're born into, it just isn't the family you're meant to have. Sometimes you have to build your own, brick by brick, with people who choose you back. I chose Daniel, and he chose me. We chose Noah, and he chose us right back, with every gummy smile, every first word, every wobbly step. That's what real family means, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Share your thoughts below and don't forget to follow the channel for more deep and meaningful stories.